All right, folks, huge treat for you here today on Do You Know Jack, because I have the one and only legendary drummer Neal Smith on the line. How you doing, Neal?
I'm doing great, Jack. How you doing today?
Not bad, not bad. So you've released a compilation album with your solo project KillSmith in the last couple of months. I want to
Yeah,
say,
I released it October 1st. It was called KillSmith Halloween, and I've been wanting to do it for quite a while, but I just didn't know exactly how I would, what I would call it, the correct time for the release. And I started thinking about, because it's, all my stuff is, pretty heavy
yeah.
and dark, and definitely in the Alice Cooper vein that we started a long time ago, and a little bit of a tangent, but all of a sudden I started putting some songs together, and in the Monsters in the Attic, Dynasty of Darkness, Die for the Night, the Killsmith Overture, Squeeze Like a Python, Cemetery of the Damned. I had these songs. I put them together. I said, this has really a nice Halloween feel to it, and it's not necessarily the Halloween songs you play in Halloween. They're just a bunch of heavy songs that fit into that.
Yeah.
And I figured, well, we were the band that made every day Halloween. So why not, have an album that reflects that? And I added one new song called Strychnine. The other 11 songs are from the three KillSmith trilogies. And then I had one brand new, and I thought I would put a brand new one in it just to have something kind of fresh. And so Strychnine is a new song, and I'm trying to find an animator to work with to animate that song, put it in cartoon form.
Oh wow.
I'm currently doing that, but that it all worked out, and I've had the fans seem to enjoy it a lot, and
Oh, for sure, yeah.
so we're always staying creative. I know Dennis is working on some project. Alice is always working on some things. Michael Bruce is always writing too. So the creative juices keep flowing, and that's great.
For sure, for sure. Well, now I know in the press release for this record, it talks about how, you're obviously, part and parcel, quote unquote, maybe responsible for, co-writing some of the truly classic Alice Cooper songs. I guess my question is, how has your own creative songwriting process evolved over time, and especially thinking to 10 years of Killsmith and such.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a great question, Jack. And we go back to the days that we were all writing, and songs like if you look closely on the albums or the singles, School's Out, Elected, I'm 18,
Yeah.
and a lot of other songs on the albums were a collaboration between all five members of the band, and that, of course, is Alice, Glenn Buxton, Michael Bruce, Dennis Dunaway, and myself.
Yeah.
And they were true collaborations, and I think probably really the best example, there's two great examples of that. One is a hit single, School's Out, of course, and the other one is Halo of Flies, which is a longer, album-orientated song. So it wasn't specifically, it just sort of evolved and happened with the band. And I think that was a tribute to the chemistry of how we work together as a unit.
Yeah.
And because even the Beatles, everything is McCartney and Lennon as far as the songwriting for the majority. There are a couple of George Harrison songs, but they usually get in a pattern. Same with the Rolling Stones, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. But we really, everybody in the band wrote. And Michael Bruce was our main songwriter, and then Dennis and I wrote a lot of songs. Black Juju, Dennis wrote. Hallowed Be My Name. I wrote. Alma Mater on School's Out was a song I originally wrote, and then Alice came in and we worked on the lyrics together on that one. So everybody wrote. Glenn wrote the least, but one of his biggest contributions, of course, was School's Out, because he had a lot to do with that, and he came up with the intro to School's Out, which I think is certainly a signature guitar riff for him. So everybody contributed and got credit for it, rightly so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now, how does your own individual process compare, I suppose, would be the next logical question.
Well, I think one of the things that inspired me, of course, recording today is much different than it was, back in the '70s. The technology is light years ahead of that. So literally, you can go to the studio, one person, and record a full song.
Yeah.
And I play rhythm guitar, a little bit of bass, but I don't play bass on the tracks. I play the rhythm guitar, the drums, I sing them, I do all the arrangement, and work with some great guitar players that play all the lead work, so, and a great keyboard player as well. So it's a learning process, and I love to do it because I just start with a click track and find the right groove of the song. One of my jobs has always been, and I learned over the years, is that as a drummer, not only the rhythm section with the bass guitar, and playing, coming up with something creative that fits with the song, but also to find the right groove, the right tempo, and that really is one of the biggest jobs. And live on stage songs, we always did them a little faster for the energy on stage, but for a record, you want to find the true groove of the song. And I always say, if it's too slow, the song can die, and if it's too fast, the song can run away and sound rushed.
Yeah.
But you've got to find that dead-on tempo, and that's one of the biggest challenges. But it's one of the things I love to do when I'm writing a song. Not only arrangement, but and that's the backbone of the full song, whether the song's 3 minutes long or 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's just to find that right groove, that right tempo, and that it stays with. So I've enjoyed doing that, putting the songs together. And over time, and I'm not one of these people that sits down and has to write 3 songs a day. I only write when I'm inspired. I can wake up in the middle of the night and be dreaming about a song, and I'll be running in my studio and put the idea down. So, when I'm inspired, I write, and when I'm not, I don't push it. And everything that I've written on all the KillSmith albums, the 3, which is Sexual Savior was the first one, and then KillSmith 2, and then KillSmith and the Green Fire Empire was my 3rd one that was out 2 years ago. And those albums really, are inspired. I like them all. There's a lot of rawness in them and stuff on the edge, which gets back to like the early Alice Cooper feel. It's not too overly produced. I still like that edge. I still like the subject matter to be a little bit crazy. And it just gives me a great release, and with no bounds. And I've never had bounds in my life at all, or any boundaries. And that was a great thing about the Alice Cooper group, is everybody got to experiment and come up with something. I mean, Dennis is an amazing bass player and comes up with some amazing stuff. I mean, and he and I always just would naturally fall into a groove. And sometimes when we're going through a song, we just move together. It's like a school of fish or a flock of birds. I mean, they just, one goes to the right, one goes to the, they all follow each other just instinctively. So that was a very lucky thing for the band, and there was nobody that was directing anything. Once we're in the studio, Bob Ezrin, had his finger on an awful lot of things, but not as far as what we actually played. Bob's a great producer and great arranger.
Yeah.
And that's why Canada is such a huge part of the Alice Cooper band, because of Jack Richardson and Bob Ezrin.
Yeah, of course. I couldn't help but think, as you were talking about the subject matter, not just of your own KillSmith stuff, but Alice Cooper. I mean, you guys were very much trendsetters. I mean, nowadays to have a song with the word death in it probably isn't as much of a big deal as it is then. So I mean, is that a challenge nowadays, I guess, to come up with?
Well, that's what I said. I'm not. I don't put myself in any kind of boundaries like that. Obviously if I get airplay, that's great. If I don't really let the art suffer because of that. And that was an amazing thing about Alice Cooper, and it was one of the toughest thing we had to do, was keep the image of who we were and create a commercial song.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing challenge for us. But again, Bob Ezrin had the magic to be able to put an arrangement together. I mean, I'm 18 was a song that was a dark, very dark song. It was 8 minutes long on stage, and he turned it into a 3-minute hit single.
Yeah.
So he did his job, and we just kept the songs coming, and he became like the 6th member of the band. But as far as what I do today, I don't restrain myself. Sexual Saver is a very X-rated album lyrically.
Uh-huh.
So I got that out of my system, and the KillSmith 2 and the Greenfire album, not so much. But I still, like I said, the names of the songs I mentioned before, Cemetery of the Damned, How Do You Bleed, Death by the Numbers, Thrill, 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 Shoot to Kill, Die for the Night. I mean, these are songs that, you get an idea for them. And I like I said, it was a total collaborative effort in the original Alice Cooper group.
Yeah,
and Dennis still his new song Cold Cold Coffin and video that go along with it. I mean, he's still in that, and it's just it's Halloween is like I said, every day for us all the time. but also you have to remember the inspiration for all that came from the old Hollywood movies, all the old monster movies and the vampire movies and Dracula and Frankenstein and Godzilla. I mean, all of those, that was where we started from.
Yeah.
And we were inspired by that. And once we realized we could actually write songs about that, and right away we knew it would be controversial.
Yeah.
Once we had songs that the music was relatively commercial. And then, but once the fans understood it, got it, and they also knew it was a little bit tongue in cheek because it was like Saturday afternoon at the movies.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. I mean, that's terrifying to me. I saw that movie and I never wanted to sleep alone in a house again the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that movie, but I mean, that's terrifying. And I know that the parents were terrified of us. I just was reading something from the Daily Mirror from 1973 when they wanted to ban us from playing in the UK. I mean, they were scared to death. Parents were scared to death, and they thought it was really the demise of teenagers. And I remember that quite well. I mean, we terrified parents. And over the years, Alice has kind of, he after Nightmare became a little bit more commercial. And that's fine because that's what he did on his own. But the band was a little more terrifying.
Yeah.
This day and age, I don't think it would be so much, but I think it was a sign of the times as well with the Vietnam War and all the changes and the uprising and the social changes that were being made and all the revolutions that were going on. I mean, we just fit right in there. And Canada again. I mean, they took us under their wing from the very first show that we ever did there in Toronto at the Rock and Roll Revival. So it was a lot more European than the United States. Plus, they had a lot cooler clothes in the stores too. The stuff in this, I mean, still the styles from the '60s. They're okay, but in the stores because they got in Toronto, they had got a lot of their clothing from Europe, and so man, we used to love to go there and record and shop and play and do our concerts and
for sure
hang out.
Well, now, not to discount 50 years of Alice Cooper, because I mean, obviously that's something special, but one thing that I learned just in my research of you and your own work drumming is you've worked with a lot of bands, and one in particular really stood out to me, and that's your time with Beyond the Valley of 1984 with the Plasmatics. How did you end up getting in on that record?
Well, when Dennis and I had a band at the end of the 80s after the original group stopped playing, and it was called the Flying Tigers. We played around New England on the East Coast of the United States, and there was a club in New Haven, Connecticut that we had played occasionally, and there was a band that came up from New York, from the Village, called the Plasmatics, and they were making a huge buzz. And so I had heard about them, and I went to see them, and they really had the same vibe that we did when we were playing the club circuit, right at the between all the way up through Pretty's for an Easy Action and to Love It to Death when we started playing the bigger venues then. And what they did is they totally captivated what the Plasmatics were in a little venue. And when you walked in, it was definitely the stage was totally different than anything you've ever seen. And this was beyond the New Hope for the Wretched, which was their first album.
Yeah.
And when I saw them, and they all had the mohawks and the crazy clothes and stuff, and I had to go meet these guys. You know, when I went to see them, because the show was just so unbelievably amazing, so different than anything I'd ever seen. It was like bringing theater to the fledgling punk movement, and it was pretty cool. And so I went backstage and met them all, and in our conversation, I said, well, you know, your music is so fresh and so amazing, so much power on stage. What was your influence? And they said that our number one album for them, their Sgt. Pepper album, was the Alice Cooper's first album, Pretty's for You.
Wow.
And I went, well, no wonder you guys are so fucking crazy. I mean, I mean that album is pretty crazy. It's a very difficult, challenging album. It was a tough album to write and play, but they that was their inspiration. They said that they loved Pretty's for You, and so that was another group that, you know, what we had done, and they took it in a whole new, fresh direction, but it inspired a whole new style of music, and so I told them that night, I said, if you ever need any help with any drums or anything, I would love to play with you guys. So it was a couple of years later, they were ready to start their second album, Beyond the Valley of 1984. That was in the early 80s, and they contacted me and wanted me to play, and I played the whole album with them. And it was I never played any live shows, but we recorded it in New York. And I got to tell you, even at that age, I was still in my early 30s. It was a grueling pace to play with those guys, because they had speed punk down, and they have some fast songs. You listen to that album, man. I listened to it, I go, how the hell did I ever play that?
Yeah.
But it was challenging, and they were all very professional. Nobody got stoned in the band. It was all
Wow.
business. And I mean, Wendy was a vegetarian, never did drugs, and so it was something very cool. And by that time, the bass player, and I just talked to him a few months ago, and he had the white mohawk. He's an amazing guy. He plays drums amazingly well.
Oh, wow.
And so he actually showed me the drum parts, and I just picked up on them and kind of did my thing after that. So it was like I said, a very professional situation. We spent a couple of weeks in rehearsal, a couple of weeks recording the songs. So that was something that, I mean, I would have been, I mean, they paid me to do it, but I would have been happy to do that for free, because it was such a great experience.
Yeah, no, and you watch Wendy in interviews, and of course, you know, she has the whole punk rock vibe and philosophy going, but I mean, in terms of, like, you know, Wendy, the punk rock icon, and, you know, Wendy, you know, in person, maybe outside of that, like, was there a whole lot of difference there? You know what I
Oh,
mean?
there's a huge difference. Yeah, it's as different as Alice on stage and Alice's personality when we're on the golf course playing golf. I mean, she was. Unfortunately, I live, you know, not too far from where, unfortunately, she committed suicide a couple of years ago here in Connecticut. But she was a very docile person, very smart, always you know, very outspoken. And like I said, a vegetarian, didn't do drugs, didn't drink, and you know, she was an animal activist, and very different than you think you would see on stage. But she was great with the chainsaw cutting up guitars, I'll tell you that much.
Well, now fast forward to 2011. Of course, you guys got the big Rock Hall of Fame induction. It seems like there's always a lot of controversy around, you know, getting in there, but I think you guys, you know, handled it fairly gracefully from what I've seen and heard.
Well, that was one reason when the band broke up, and we'll get into that. But you know, we all learned the name Alice Cooper, so we were never going to go to war. I was never going to sue my best friends, and I wasn't going to make a bunch of lawyers rich, because you never know down the line what's going to happen. And in the Hall of Fame, and we had done some things prior to that. Occasionally, we played for the grand opening of Alice's restaurant, Cooperstown in Phoenix, in the late '90s, and then about 10 years later, the Hall of Fame thing happened. And so I since about 1990, I go out to Arizona from New England here once or twice in the wintertime. And you know, I would get together with Alice. We play golf. He got me into golf big time, and I love it. And we play a lot when I'm out there. And that wasn't going to change my feeling about Dennis and Michael and Alice and Glenn. And unfortunately, we lost him in 1997. But so the friendship always stayed intact. And then when we were doing the Welcome to My Nightmare album, which also was an inspiration to, get together, because Alice was looking for material, and Dennis had a song, Michael had a song, and I had a song, and we, Alice and Bob, recrafted the songs.
Yeah.
So the one was called When Hell Comes Home, and that was Michael's song, and Dennis's Runaway Train, I believe that was his song, and then the other one was I'll Bite Your Face Off, which was a single off the album, and that's the one that I wrote. And then they rewrote it, and then we recorded it in New York City. And then while we're recording, in a couple months later, we were nominated. That was late 2010. A couple months later, we were one of the 15 nominees for the class of 2011 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which really, it just shocked me, because I know that we had been kept out for a long time. And I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure I know the reason why. And we outlived some of the people that wanted to keep us out of the Hall of Fame. And so when the right time came, we got nominated, and luckily we're one of the bands that got in on the first nomination. We didn't have to go 2 or 3 years to be nominated. And again, I was shocked at the nomination. And then when we were chosen to be one of the 5 acts inducted, it was bittersweet, because Glenn was no longer around, and because Glenn was really the heart and soul of the band. I mean, he's the person that got me in the band when the band was the Naz, and I joined, and because we were all friends in junior college in Arizona. So, but again, it was great, and that was one reason the friendship continued as it does today. And we did the album Welcome to My Nightmare. We had the 3 songs on it, and a couple months later we went out to, matter of fact, Phoenix. Alice has his annual Christmas pudding show to raise money for his charity, Solid Rock Foundation. And while we were doing that, because we had played that one time prior to that, and while we were in rehearsals to do that show, we're all there, and Shep Gordon, our manager, was there. We got the news from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and of course it was all over radio and television that the 5 acts and the original Alice Cooper group was one of them. And it was just, I still get chills thinking about it. And then when we did it, when we went down there, and because it was in New York that year at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel at the ballroom, it was just great. And it was great to be with everybody there. And then we went out to LA after the induction and did some shows out there too. So, and that's sort of been the stimulus that, we've done a few things since then, and
of course,
the shows in the UK in November of last year, 2017. We did the 5 shows over there in the biggest venues they've got there, and they were all phenomenal. And so it was all good. And again, going back to your original statement about that everybody was still, we all get together, we all laugh like crazy. I call it the party that never ended. I mean, we all just have the stupidest sense of humor in the world, and it never goes away. I mean, we were in our teens and 20s then, and now we're, everybody's in their early 70s. So it's, I mean, it is ridiculous, but we have a great time, and I think that the fans, you can't take the music too seriously. I mean, we take what we do seriously, but the themes were just always fun. Like I said, like Saturday afternoon at the movies.
Yeah. Does it bother you sometimes when bands sort of shun those, potential Rock Hall nominations?
It bothers me a lot, and I think they ought to be fucking kicked out when that happens, because I think part of it is the camaraderie. I mean, Ace Frehley is a good buddy of mine, but I used to live very close to him, and we hung out a lot together back in the
that's right, yeah,
in the 80s. And so I mean, I like Ace, and I know they've always had problems, but for God's sakes, you did something very, very special together, and there should be nothing that takes away from what you do have. And that's one thing nobody can take away from you. Nobody can take away Pretties for You and Easy Action and Love It to Death and Killer, School's Out, Most of Love and Our Greatest Hits, and Billion Dollar Babies. Nobody can take that away from us. That's always there, and we did it. So I just don't understand when groups do that, and I think it's unfortunate. But again, that's life, and it's a crazy business. The music world, especially rock, is crazy, and there's a lot of high emotions, and it's unfortunate, but everybody has to handle it in the way they feel best, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So now that this compilation record's come out, I mean, what's next for Neal Smith?
Well, I'm currently, like I said, trying to work with an animator for the song Strychnine, and plus I'm writing other songs right now, and I'm always experimenting some other musical veins, and that's currently what I'm doing right now. And I'll be heading out to Arizona early part of 2019, and I have some new songs that I want to play for Michael and Alice while I'm out there, and because I know Alice is always looking for material, and so you never know what the future's going to bring, but I guarantee it's going to be in the music studio or on the golf course.
Right on, Neal. Well, listen, man, it's been awesome just connecting with you and talking about all things Neal Smith, man. I definitely appreciate it, and the listeners of Do You Know Jack will as well.
Okay, that's terrific, and everybody out there in Canada, have a great, safe holiday season 2018.
Right on. Well, thanks again, man.
All right, take care. Good talking to you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.